Morning, everybody. We are going through this article today for Monday morning. I didn't see this when this first came out, but this is pretty important. So we're just going to read through this. This is going to be kind of a longer video, but I'm going to try to give as much detail as possible so y'all get a good idea of what's going on here. But hopefully I can simplify this a little bit because there's a lot to this. So this is from ComputerWorld.com from this guy Johnny Evans, the Appleaholic. Experts call Apple's CSAM scheme a dangerous technology. The surveillance and control capabilities provided can potentially be abused by many adversaries, from hostile state actors through criminals to users' intimate partners, experts warn. So the what CSAM is CSAM is child sexual abuse material, and we'll read on. You'll see what it is. It's a detection system here that Apple's wanting to implement. Apple's decision to postpone introduction of its controversial client-side scanning. That's what CSS is, client-side scanning. It's going to be scanning for this information on your device, but it'll be doing it from your device, not scanning remotely from who knows where, Apple servers. The delay looks like an even better idea amid news governments already want to use the controversial tools for uh, other forms of surveillance. So big surprise there. The governments are just drooling over this. You have a technology that can scan users' devices, and the governments already want to use it to their advantage over the people. Imagine that. Let's read on. A dangerous technology. In a new report, an influential group of 14 internationally reputed security researchers have said such plans represent a, quote, dangerous technology indeed that expands state surveillance powers. They warned the client-side scanning system, if used, quote, would be much more privacy invasive than previous proposals to weaken encryption. Rather than reading the content of encrypted communications, client-side scanning gives law enforcement the ability to remotely search not just communications, but information stored on user devices. That's not good. These voices join a chorus of similar voices, including civil liberties campaigners, privacy advocates, and tech industry critics who have already warned that the plans threaten basic human rights. While the system Apple announced seemed well-intentioned, its use of on-device scanning against image databases in the form of numerical hash data had many concerned. After all, if a device can be scanned for one thing, it can be easily extended to search for other things. That is probably the crux of the main concern right there. Because it's pretty plainly written there. If they can scan for banned material, then why can't the government twist their arm to scan for you talking about the wrong thing, or wrong things basically? Turns out some governments are working on precisely that. Great. European Union wants it, and they may have it, I believe it says here, by as early as next year. The researchers say they began looking into the technology prior to Apple's announcement in response to moves by European Union leaders to insist on such a system. The researchers think a proposal to mandate such photo scanning in the EU could come as soon as this year, and would extend beyond child sexual abuse material to also include scanning for evidence of organized crime and terrorist activity. Well, I think it's obvious what is being labeled as the category of terrorist activity has grown to protesting at school board meetings. Standing up for your kids is terrorist activity, apparently. So, and here it lays it out here. The concern is that what many nations see as ordinary behavior is criminalized in others. A search for criminal material could easily be extended to become a search for evidence of homosexuality, for example, which is a capital offense in some nations. Let's go over here real quick. This is from an earlier article by the same fellow, and this tells exactly what it is. The Apple's implementation of this scanning. This kind of lays it out. Apple says its system is automated. It doesn't scan the actual images themselves, uses some form of hash data system to identify known instances of child sexual abuse material, and says it has some fail-safes in place to protect privacy. So they say. Excuse me. Privacy advocates warn that now it has created such a system, Apple is on a rocky road to an inexorable extension of on-device content scanning and reporting that could and likely will be abused by some nations. So here's where it explains what is actually going on with Apple's proposed system that has apparently now been delayed because of these concerns. There are three main elements to the system which will lurk inside iOS 15, iPad OS 15, and Mac OS. Mac OS Monterey when they ship later this year. This, like I said, this article's a little bit older. This one's from August, so this info may be outdated as far as what a version this will be included with. So this is how it scans your images. Not only, well, here we go. Apple system scans all images stored in iCloud Photos to see whether they match the CSAM database held by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I guess there's a database somewhere of all these images of exploited children, which is kind of weird, but I guess it's necessary. There you go. Images are scanned on the device using a database known as CSAM image hashes provided by NCMEC and other child safety organizations. Apple further transforms this database into an unreadable set of hashes that is securely stored on user's device. So when an image is stored on iCloud Photos, a matching process takes place. In the event an account crosses a threshold of multiple instances of known child sexual abuse material content, Apple is alerted. If alerted, the data is manually reviewed, the account is disabled, and NCMEC is informed. So it's not somebody, what they're saying is it's not somebody just sitting there manually looking through all your iCloud photos. It puts it through a process where some form of machine learning here will look through it. Some AI, I think, goes through an altered version of your image that's just probably just some data, just some numbers, and it'll match it up to their database of this material. And if they get too many that match, then they start decrypting these images. Decrypting is probably not the right word, but they start actually reviewing the images. So this is how they're getting around the privacy concerns. They're saying there's not somebody actually looking at all this until they get a red flag. But I think the problem is, and they go on to explain about this earlier, is this is the first iteration. These are the good intentions. What will they do with it later? What will the government strong arm them into doing later? The system isn't perfect, however. Let's keep reading. The company says there's a less than 1 in 1 trillion chance of incorrectly flagging an account. Apple has more than 1 billion users, so that means there's a better than 1 in 1,000 chance of someone being incorrectly identified each year. Users who feel they have been mistakenly flagged can appeal. Yeah, that's after your account has been locked, and hopefully your images aren't just deleted forever. I could see them just nuking your entire account because of this, incorrectly. It's going to happen. It'll also scan your messages. So it'll be scanning messages as well. Let's see if it says Apple system uses on-device machine learning to scan images on messages in message sent or received by minors for sexually explicit material, warning parents if such images are identified. I mean, that sounds pretty neat. Privacy concerns aside, that sounds pretty neat. Parents can enable or disable the system, and any such content received by a child will be blurred. If a child attempts to send sexually explicit content, they will be warned, and the parents can be told. Apple says it does not get access to the images which are scanned on the device. Watching what you search for. Obviously, this can be used to monitor search queries, but I think we all know that what you search for is not exactly hidden from anybody. Your cell phone provider, your internet service provider, I think they're all knowing what we're searching for. Maybe if you're using a VPN, this would still get you. So this goes on to explain in a little more detail what they're doing scanning the images. I kind of explained it earlier, but so we don't need to read that. Privacy advocates are extremely alarmed, obviously. So I did want to read, before I go on and read the report from this group, I wanted to read these alternative arguments because I think it's important to see both sides of the coin here. There are other arguments. One of the most compelling of these is that servers at internet service providers and email providers are already scanning for such content, and that Apple has built a system that minimizes human involvement and only flags a problem in the event it identifies multiple matches between the child sexual abuse material database and content on the device. So they're saying your ISP is already, if you upload a photo to your iCloud, your ISP can already see it, basically, is what they're saying. I suppose that's true. You're not using end-to-end encryption for any of this, or a VPN, your ISP can already see it. And they're saying this is better because there's no human involvement here. So that's what they're saying here. This is better than what we're already doing. There's no doubt that children are at risk. Obviously, everyone agrees that this is a bad situation. Of the nearly 26,500 runaways reported to NCMEC in 2020, 1 in 6 were likely victims of child sex trafficking. The organization's cyber trip line, which I imagine Apple is connected to in this case, received more than nearly 22 million related to some, 22 million reports related to some form of child sexual abuse material in 2020. Wow. The president and CEO of NCMEC said, with so many people using Apple products, these new safety measures have life-saving potential for children who are being enticed online and whose horrific images are being circulated in CSAM. At the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, we know this crime can only be combated if we are steadfast in our dedication to protecting children. We can only do this because technology partners like Apple step up and make their dedication known. It's hard to argue with that, privacy is very important, but it's hard to argue with that. So I do see the argument for this needing to be implemented. But the best of intentions is not you don't necessarily make policy just because you intend to do the right thing. You have to look at the ramifications for individual privacy, freedom. You have to look at what are the worst case scenarios. What's the outcome? What can the outcome be if this goes sideways? We'll get into that in a minute too. Most of us agree that children should be protected, and by doing so, Apple has eroded that argument some repressive governments might use to force matters. Let's see here. Let me go back to this. Others say that by creating a system to protect children against such egregious crimes, Apple is removing an argument some might use to justify device backdoors in a wider sense. So they're saying we have built in this system to sniff out this material, and so the argument is, well, we've built this material, this system into the operating system, so we don't need to build you in a backdoor, or if there is a backdoor, give you access to it because we already have a system to take care of this. So if that's your argument, you need to give us a backdoor. Government X is going to argue, you need to give us a backdoor because we need to look for this kind of material. Apple can say, hey, well, we've already got a system check for that, so we're not just going to give you, access to do whatever you want. Most of us agree that children should be protected, and by doing so, Apple has eroded that argument some repressive governments might use to force matters. Now, it must stand against any mission creep in the part of such governments. Yeah, well, we'll see. That there's no way that's going to happen. The last challenge is the biggest problem, given that Apple, when pushed, will always follow the laws of governments and nations it does business in. That's exactly right. Let me read that again. And this is why there's so much concern about this. That last challenge is the biggest problem. Apple standing against mission creep on the part of such governments. Given that Apple, when pushed, will always follow the laws of governments and nations it does business in. So if these nations have laws that are strongly against personal freedom and privacy, Apple's just going to say, well, we want to sell our phones in your backyard. So, okay, we'll start searching for this. No matter how, this is a quote here from Edward Snowden, no matter how well-intentioned, Apple is rolling out mass surveillance to the entire world with this, warned noted privacy advocate Edward Snowden. If they can scan for child sexual abuse material today, they can scan for anything tomorrow. Exactly. Experts warnings, we've kind of already gotten into this. So we're going to go, there's another issue here I wanted to touch on. But for many users, particularly business users, there are greater threats lurking. As most user devices have vulnerabilities, the surveillance and control capabilities of CSS can potentially be abused by many adversaries of client-side scanning. From hostile state actors through criminals to users' intimate partners, the report warns. Moreover, the opacity of mobile operating systems makes it difficult to verify that client-side scanning policies target only material whose illegality is uncontested. So that's another problem with this is since this is all proprietary code, nobody can see it. They can say we're scanning for X, but the government can say, well, we want you to also scan for Trump memes or whatever. The left in the U.S. was very upset when I believe it was a senator came out with a meme. It was some anime meme, right? But they could scan for that and find out who created it and harass that person. The government has been accused in the past of past presidents have been accused of using the IRS to target certain organizations. We've had a undercover journalist from Project Veritas recently was raided by the FBI. So they could have been, this can be used in terrible ways, very, in terrible ways that are very illegal. Effectively, once such a system is put in place, it's only a matter of time until criminal entities figure out how to undermine it, extending it to detect valuable personal or business data, or inserting false positives against political enemies. So this is talking about how this is such a powerful and invasive tool. If it gets if a nefarious actor that's not a state gets control of this, it can be used for all kinds of sorts of crime. I wanted to read. So here they link to the report, "Bugs in our pockets. The risk of client-side scanning," is available here. So I have downloaded this and I have marked it up in a few places. Whoops. Let's put that back where it was. Let's move my big head over here. There we go. There's just a few things I wanted to touch on. There are multiple ways in which client-side scanning can fail, can be evaded, and abused. We have gone over those. Okay, this is the other major part I wanted to touch on, and we'll wrap up here. The introduction of client-side scanning. Now, this is the idea of client-side scanning. This is not necessarily Apple's implementation. This is a critique of the practice as a whole. The introduction of client-side scanning would be much more privacy invasive. Let me restart that. The introduction of client-side scanning would be much more privacy invasive than previous proposals to weaken encryption. Rather than reading the content of encrypted communications, CSS gives law enforcement the ability to remotely search not just communications, but information stored on users' devices. And that was quoted earlier in the article. I just want to read it again. Introducing this powerful scanning technology on all user devices without fully understanding its vulnerabilities and thinking through the technical and policy consequences would be an extremely dangerous societal experiment. Given recent experience in multiple countries of hostile state interference in elections and referenda, it should be a national security priority to resist attempts to spy on and influence law-abiding citizens. So I remember there was, we have a political party in the U.S. complained after Donald Trump was elected that there was a Facebook campaign. There was a Facebook campaign to that had a big sway in getting Donald Trump elected. So whether or not that's true, as the only point is that we're already looking for these things. There are parties in front of and behind the scenes that are already using everything um, to their advantage, either trying to or actually doing it. CSS makes law-abiding citizens more vulnerable with their personal devices searchable on an industrial scale. Plainly put, it is a dangerous technology. Even if deployed initially to scan for child sexual abuse material, content that is clearly illegal, there would be enormous pressure to expand its storage. Excuse me, to expand its scope. And that's the worry. It starts out as one thing, and it just creeps and creeps, and we're frogs in a pot of boiling water, right? I want to say, oh, they just want to scan for sexual abuse material. Okay, that makes sense. I'll give them access. That sounds fine. I'll just buy another Apple phone, And then they want to scan for racist material, right? They want to find these neo Nazis that are targeting people with hate crimes or getting their little groups together and talking about how whatever. And so we think, oh, those are terrible people. Of course, let's do that as well. Let's find those people, and then it just creeps and saying, well, let's do these far right people that are sort of connected with them. Okay, all right, yeah, I'm not one of those guys, right? And then it creeps farther and farther, and then before you know it, you're the only one left who hasn't been. You've got Big Brother, basically. That's what you have. As if we don't have enough problems with that in the U.S. already. We would then be hard-pressed to find any way to resist its expansion or to control abuse of the system. Yes, because our government is known for relinquishing power. Yep, they get it, and then they're like, well, this is too much power for us, we'll give it back. That's correct. Such bulk surveillance can result in a significant chilling effect on freedom of speech and indeed on democracy itself. See Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. Okay, so you can read this. It's linked in the original article. A report is bugs in our pockets. The risk of client-side scanning. I just read well, actually, it's before the intro. They call it the executive summary here. I just read that to you guys and they highlighted, but read the rest of it if you have time. It's 45 pages, so I understand. I tried to give you the overhead view of it, so hopefully, I just think this is very important. This story got past me when it came out a month ago. That's when this is from, October 15th. So I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. Hopefully this hasn't gotten too into the weeds here, but it's something that I think we really need to fight against. Vote with your pocket. If you're buying an Apple device, you need to. If you're using an Apple device, it's the same thing with Google. These Alexa devices in our homes. You need to know It's easy to just set it up and use it because it's convenient, but you need to know what it's doing behind the scenes because it has ramifications for all of our freedoms in the future. So, very important. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you'll have a great week. Now my face is on the wrong side, but that's okay. Thank y'all for watching. Have a good week. As you can see, the sun's rising here. So, but I'm going to go to work soon. So, you guys work hard. Be good. Thank y'all for watching.